Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have computer and technology news and a lot of different headlines. Everything from Tesla to regulation to a 500 hertz PC monitor. I know your first question is what? And your second question is why? Well, we'll get to that as well. Let's see, so we have that one. We have an NFT collection was stolen. The poor gentleman had so he claimed, millions of dollars worth of NFTs stolen from his wallet. So we have something for everyone. Oh, and of course, just because acquisitions have been on the mind lately, the latest acquisition didn't see coming, but the New York Times purchased Wordle. That's right. The maker of the famous crossword puzzle has purchased Wordle, the app that went viral. Now, it seems like a perfect fit. Now, everyone, let's go ahead and get started with, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, past shows, future shows, show notes, articles, reviews, social media links, podcasts, archives, video archives. If you want to join us live at twitch.tv/computeramerica, highly encourage you to do so. But, hey, you don't have to. The best way to listen to Computer America is whichever way you decide to choose. And we thank you so much for that. Now, with all that being said, let's go ahead and go ahead and get things started with computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. So our first story that we're going to do, and by the way, reading the comments on this one was really something else. So Microsoft has some words to say about Apple. And obviously, I think a lot of people will say, wow, really? Your direct competitor and you don't like that they're being so successful? And, you know, that's a fair argument. But at the same time, just because someone is wrong, just because someone is in the same boat, you know, pot calling the kettle black, doesn't mean that the pot and the kettle are not both black. It just means that's a little hypocritical. Well, enter the story that we have here from AppleInsider, and you can imagine which way they're kind of leaning, but Microsoft says that if Apple isn't stopped now, its antitrust behavior will just get worse. And, you know, I think that there's a number of angles that Apple is having to really compete against. I just heard just the other day that about 23 or 32, it was, 32 something, different state attorney generals were looking at the Apple Epic ruling and thinking about bringing legislation back to the Supreme Court in regards to the closed ecosystem that Apple runs. And that is, so that's a legal fight that's not going to end. Of course, Apple is facing a lot of regulatory pressure about being very monopolistic. And I think that anytime a company reaches $3 trillion, it's time to just, kind of take survey on, are they really being competitive? Could someone with, a pocket full of cash and a head full of dreams, could they really compete on an even playing field with Apple or Microsoft or Amazon or any of these large companies? What does it really mean to be antitrust? Well, let's go ahead and mention this. Microsoft's amicus filing, included below, sets out what is described as its own unique and balanced perspective to the legal, economic, and technological issues this case implicates, saying that as a firm which, like Apple, sells both hardware and software, Microsoft says it has an interest in supporting antitrust law. Now, clearly, Microsoft and Apple, two of the oldest rivals in computing, and anyone without the memory of a goldfish and is over the age of 30 will remember that in the 90s, Microsoft almost killed Apple. Like, Microsoft was one of the biggest investors in Apple to make them competitive so that Microsoft didn't just outright kill all of their competition. And of course, Microsoft was taken to task for it. And here we are, 30 years down the road, and we're right back at it, but now with Apple having the upper hand over Microsoft. Although, not to say poor Microsoft. Microsoft is doing very, very, very well. It's just Apple's doing just that much better. Now, they say that describing what it calls Apple's extraordinary gatekeeper power, Microsoft joins Epic Games in criticizing the alleged errors in the original ruling that the judge concluded, saying that, quote, online commerce and interpersonal connection funnels significantly and sometimes predominantly through iOS devices. Few companies, perhaps none since AT&T at the height of the telephone monopoly, have controlled the pipe through which such an enormous range of economic activity flows. As much as there is Android in the world, and of course, Android can be forked, so there's no one version of Android, but by and large, Android and all of its different flavors do come up to be a sizable majority over Apple. But when you look at revenue spent through iOS and revenue spent through Android, iOS has a beat, like, hands down. iOS and Apple, they control their own marketplace, they control what apps can be downloaded, and then of course inside those apps they find that the people who purchase these make these purchases in these apps are just that much greater than Android. Apple has a lot of economic activity inside its own ecosystem that it completely controls top to bottom. Now, they're saying that beyond app distribution and in-app payment solutions, the adjacent markets directly at issue in this case, Apple offers mobile payments, music, movies and television, advertising, games, health tracking, web browsing, messaging, video chat, news, cloud storage, ebook, smart home devices, wearables, and more besides. Yeah, they are the one-stop shop if you have a digital footprint in any regard. Microsoft claims that if the original ruling is upheld, the result could be that that could insulate Apple from meritorious antitrust scrutiny and embolden further harmful conduct, and innovation will suffer. Innovation's been suffering for the past 10, 15 years, ever since tech has been building this gigantic lead that it has over any kind of startup. And anytime a startup starts up and gets any kind of purchase or foothold in this new digital economy, you see Google come in and just purchase the company outright. You see Microsoft, you see Apple, you see so many different companies that it's almost a joke at this point that venture capital, the seed funding to get these ideas off the ground, the end result of these companies is not start a company, build it up, make it successful, make money. It's build it up, inject it with infinite piles of cash until you have a big enough user base and one of the big tech companies buys you out. You can think about things like Waymo. You could think about things like Uber Eats and the services that they were before. Big tech companies acquire smaller, more innovative companies instead of competing on an even playing field. Hey, acquiring them outright works much, much better. So, of course, a lot of people in the comments will kind of say that obviously Microsoft has a bit of history in this, so they would know better than most. But I would say that, Microsoft's not wrong. Microsoft is also in dire need of a nice little check on their powers and how many verticals they operate in. But that doesn't mean that they can't criticize Apple for doing the exact same thing. So there you have it. Microsoft says Apple, if they're not stopped, then the evil Apple will run amok. Yeah, well, big tech is definitely in for a rude awakening, and actually more so to that point, it's not just all talk and, kind of speculation on my end with tech companies continuing to operate unimpeded. You have now legislation actually being proposed. And I'd love to see this kind of thing happen, where this from NBC News saying that Senate introduces bill to allow farmers to fix their own equipment. And this has far-reaching implications. John Deere is, ironically, at the head of this big, massive tech issue. And for those who don't know what this really means, it's that, let's say you buy a product, John Deere tractor for $400,000, or let's say you buy a Tesla for $35,000. You buy an iPhone for $1,500. You buy a cheap little Chromebook for $100. Any one of these purchases, you own the device. If it breaks, these companies are not going to replace your hardware. They're not going to send you a new one. They don't care. It's yours, and you are responsible for it. But when it comes to actually tinkering with it, replacing the operating system, replacing parts at third parties that you would normally be able to do, these companies suddenly have a say in what your purchase and what your products, what they can and cannot do. John Deere in particular, and why this issue was so egregious, is that farmers will buy these $1 million tractors with the latest software and sensors and operating system, but then they are only repairable by first-party vendors that work directly with, John Deere, and that can get very expensive. There were tractors that, you just couldn't fix unless you called a licensed professional out, and that could take a long time. Farmers, obviously, they have to bring in their crop. They have to get things working, right away. Well, yeah, the technical and the agricultural, you needed the latest equipment to stay competitive in a very, very tight field like farming, but they were locked into these massive repair bills in this very locked down ecosystem that John Deere really had a monopoly over. Now, that's it kind of said long, but the result is legislation that said that, if a farmer buys their tractor, they own that tractor, they should have the right to change the operating system, fix security flaws. If there's an update from a third party that is not John Deere, but it would completely make it work, then hey, that's their prerogative. They should be able to replace the operating system, install the patch, do whatever they want with their piece of equipment. It doesn't matter what John Deere says at all at the end of the day. And of course, John Deere is screaming about things like, no, that's going to make the product less reliable, that's going to hurt the farmer, that's going to hurt the longevity of these devices. Well, yeah, those arguments really start to falter when based under scrutiny, because, yeah, John Deere makes a lot of money from technicians. It's it's much like Apple and what they did with their iOS devices and their iPhones and tablets and screen replacements. They would void the warranty if you sent it to anywhere else other than approved Apple technician. And of course, Apple then had a tight grip over which facilities really got that Apple certification to work on Apple devices. So, breaking apart the ecosystem, and reading through this article here from NBC News, they're saying that a bill was introduced today, in the Senate that could help make it easier for farmers to repair their tractors independently. The legislation would require agricultural equipment manufacturers to make spare parts, instruction manuals, and software codes publicly available, allowing farmers to fix devices by themselves or hire third-party mechanics of their own choosing. The bill sponsored said in an interview that he has heard from many farmers who reported the difficulties repairing their equipment and how it hurt their businesses. So there you go. It's seems like a no-brainer. But of course, the broader implication of this is that you have everything from iPhones, laptops, tractors, neonatal incubators, medical equipment, hardware, large, small, cheap, expensive. This could then be extrapolated to say that this is the law for agriculture equipment. This should be the law for anything technological. If I have an iPhone, Apple stops supporting it, I should be able to fix it on my own. Or I have an iPhone, I want to put a different operating system on it that works, and hey, that's my choice, I should be able to. Currently, that's not something you're allowed to do, but maybe in the next couple of years, it could very well be. So that's exciting, and that is a big win. That's a big check mark for consumer advocates. That's definitely a good thing, and you love to see it. You love to see it. So, how about this? Let's talk about this one real quick. Should not take long. Wordle took the world by storm. Remake of the old game Lingo, if you were from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And, well, now you have Wordle that, looks like it was purchased by the New York Times. It's a once-a-day word game that's been delighting puzzle nerds. Since launching in October of last year, it has been purchased by the New York Times, reports the New York Times. So long, old buddy. The game is a brainchild of Josh Wardle, not Wordle, Josh Wardle, and his partner Palak Shah, and once a day, it gives players 6 chances to guess a 5-letter word. And yeah, he was of course inspired in part by Spelling Bee, one of the paper's subscription games, which Wordle will likely appear alongside shortly. In part, the appeal of Wordle was that, unlike much of the internet today, it was a no-way ad or subscription supported. There was no app, even though there were some clones. It was 2 years into a global pandemic, a rare, unmitigated good. The Times did not disclose the exact terms of the purchase, but they paid in the low 7 figures. There you go. And that, so on Twitter, they mentioned that it was incredible to watch Wordle bring so much joy to so many people, and they're hoping that the New York Times will, will be able to spread that to even more people. He noted that once it migrates to the Times, Wordle will be free to play for everyone, and win streaks will likely be preserved. Odds are it's free for like the first 2 years, I think. Someone else had been able to, either through the back end or some way, access the data, and I guess they had programmed 7,000 days, I want to say, so like 20 years or something like that. No, certain amount of words, I think it was like 20,000 words, 7 years worth of Wordle was available for download. So anyone can get that. If you don't trust the New York Times to keep it ad-free and not behind a paywall forever, well, this is your chance, and you can then, of course, download that at your own pleasure. Very, very likely there will be other apps and there will be other services that will provide this very simple game for you. But this is a no-brainer pickup for the New York Times, and yeah, I can totally see why they did it. So there you go. All right, let's save the games for later. How about... Okay. Cyber attacks, then NFT shenanigans, then we'll wrap it up with video games. That's the plan. I hope you're ready for it. This next story, we've heard it before, and if you're an Olympian, I'm glad that I might be the first one to tell you. But if you will be competing in China, the FBI, wrong article. Here we go. There we go. Okay. The FBI urges temporary phones for Olympic athletes, because when you go over to China, you will be utilizing China's Wi-Fi, China's self-service, China's entire infrastructure will be right there. And, it's one of those things that An ordinary phone is such a treasure trove of data, of where you've been, what you're looking at, who you talk to, contacts, data. It's a constant stream that obviously a regime like China would definitely love to tap into, regardless of who it is. Now you mix that with dignitaries, possible spies, and other people from nations all around the world. Olympic athlete cell phones are not only going to be just, generally collected, they are going to be specifically targeted to make sure that all communication that happens within the country is scrutinized for, again, espionage or, just information that they can then harness. Now, the warning comes after a similar one from cybersecurity group Citizen Labs. Earlier this month, it looked at the official app for the Olympics, which people attending are required to download for COVID health monitoring purposes. Its report suggested that, and again, this is the app that you have to download if you want to compete in the Olympics. They're saying that it was insecure, and when it came to protecting personal data, and that's by design, that information is, of course, readily sent out. An encryption flaw enabled a third party to access documents, audio, and files. So that's also on purpose. It's to, kind of give you the sense that things are encrypted, but as long as there's the back door, hey, then the right people, quote unquote, the right people will have access to the data. Number 3, it was subject to censorship based on a list of keywords. I'm sure things like Winnie the Pooh would not be allowed to be said within the app. I would love to see the list of keywords that were not available to be said within the app. Next, its privacy policy was not clear about who received and processed any data uploaded to it. China, of course, dismissed the concerns. The games run from February 4th, so this Friday, to February 20th, with around 3,000 athletes competing in 109 events. They said that the Chinese government is spending $3.9 billion on the games, which takes place in and around Beijing. Human rights groups have called on the government to boycott both over, of course, the Uyghur people of China. So, some people, including the UK, US, and Canada, have said they will not send government delegates to attend the event. This follows an article that I think we did yesterday that China is really stepping up their efforts to, quote unquote, clean up the digital footprint of China. They're doing things like taking down gay dating apps. They're doing things like monitoring more and more the online conversation, just everything and anything that China can do to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch. We're going to see the law enforcement there really clamp down on any kind of conversation that China doesn't like, and especially things like dissidents or, definitely anything involving forced labor camps in China, because that's the sensitive spot if you're looking for it in China. There you go. Okay, so there's that one, cybersecurity. The next one, this one just happened a couple of hours ago. And if you're in Europe, well, it's something that, you might want to pay attention to, because cyber attack strikes German fuel suppliers. Much like in the United States, turns out this hack works everywhere. And even though we're just a couple of hours out, so we don't know everything about it, but a major fuel supplier in Germany is operating at a limited capacity after a cyber attack disrupted IT systems at over the weekend. And it's oil tanking Deutschland GmbH and Co. There you go. KG stores and transplant. So let's see. KG stores and transports oil, vehicle fuels, and other petroleum products for companies like Shell. And it discovered it had been hacked on Saturday. It declared they locked everything down, and again, limited capacity. Let's see. So what do we know? So obviously this brings to mind the Colonial Pipeline that happened here in the United States, which shut down that major pipeline from, I think, parts of Texas to the East Coast, caused a massive gas shortage on the East Coast. That was a real problem. Yep, so the German news outlet that first reported said that all of the oil tanking's loading and unloading systems are paralyzed, so they can't move the oil from one tanker to the next in the pipeline and so on and so forth. Yep, so the company says only German operations have been affected by the cyber attack, and cybersecurity researchers say that the attack on critical infrastructures like oil and food supplies are on the increase. So again, we're very shy on the details. We don't know who did it. We don't know how much they're asking, if it really is a ransomware attack. We don't know when this will be resolved. All of that will be, all that will be found out in the coming days. But that's kind of the problem with these these high risk targets, is that traditionally you didn't really have to care that your the software on your oil tanking provider wasn't really up to date, because it's not like it was an app that you had to run every single day. It's not like it was really critical to day-to-day operations that your service ran on Internet Explorer 6. But we're finding more and more that because so much commerce, millions of dollars, billions in infrastructure are reliant on super old software that may or may not be updated because it cannot be updated, hey, that's a great target. Even though they're not a technology-driven one, you don't want that disrupted. And here we are, just millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I'm sure even more than that, disrupted by these cyber attacks. So there you have it. Okay, so there's that one. We're going to do an NFT story for those who love beautiful, beautiful agony, if that's even what this is. And then we'll move on to video games, and then we'll wrap it up. But everyone, let's go and talk about this real quick. An NFT collector, and yes, this is going to have gratuitous use of monkey NFTs, Bored Ape Yacht Club, and something I've never even heard of before, but what was it called? Like Toxic Ape? What was it? Yeah, it was something like Toxic Ape or something like that. These things are just freaking ugly. So this is by Motherboard, and hackers tricked a collector of JPEGs depicting apes and mutants, also known as NFTs, to give them control of their digital art and sold them for more than $500,000. Yep, quote unquote, $700,000. And I want to be very careful with that number, because that number is based on nothing. That's based on transactions on through places like the marketplace where you buy and sell these NFTs. That's what they quote unquote say they are. It's like the fine art world saying that they're worth one thing, but in reality, I mean, yeah, it's probably inflated. Now, on Monday, a Twitter user who goes by Larry Lawlett with the handle ILovePonzi. What a name. What a name for, of course, NFT collector. According to a cybersecurity researcher who specializes in cryptocurrency, it appears the hacker or scammers tricked them into approving his wallet to interact with the hacker's wallet. This kind of scam or hack is increasingly common, especially now that NFTs are worth hundreds or even millions of dollars. I gotta say that it's one of those situations where you want to be able to trade them. You want to connect these things so you could, really sell them when you want to. You can trade them between wallets. You want to make sure that they're accessible. But then they're not too savvy. And instead of doing this whole distributed app thing where, so the back end of the marketplace could handle and sell and trade these, trade these NFTs. Instead, he gave permission to a singular wallet, a singular user who then stole and drained his account. They explained that it appears that he gave access to what he thought was a distributed app, but the problem is that it wasn't a distributed app, but an individual wallet, which then proceeded to take everything. There you go. So he told Motherboard that his hack was part of the fallout of a hack of Mochi NFT project. saying that earlier today our Discord was compromised, and the project explained that the hackers were able to commandeer the official Discord channel, send users a fake website, and according to Moshi Mochi, the project members lost 35 Ethereum altogether. It still shocks me that supposedly these things are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions in some cases, and they're still using the free-to-use Discord server. They're not paying for something. There's not a more secure service. There's not anything more secure than something that you can create infinite usernames, access any of these secure servers, and just by and large, I'm still shocked that Discord is the go-to place for so much of this conversation. And then like the updates and more, those are handled through Twitter, which is again another place where there's unverified accounts. There's easy to trick people, easy to scam people. I'm shocked day in and day out that they would do something like this. Now, why everyone should take this with a grain of salt is that we have seen a lot of these situations where people will claim NFTs are stolen, but sometimes that's to add to the provenance of it all. They can send it to a separate wallet that no one knows about, that is most likely run by the person who was, stolen from, send it there and say, oh no, my NFT was stolen and it's worth $700,000. I need to get that back. When in reality, it's impossible to know who he sent it to, who stole it from, and I think it seems like to me they're using these headlines, they're using these stories to fake these headlines that people are getting ripped off, they're getting stolen from, they're, by and large, just playing dumb, but they're passing the NFTs between themselves, and they're getting headlines and more attention and more publicity for the entire NFT marketplace. I really do feel like a lot of this is they're tricking the media to talk about these people because, hey, who doesn't love a good story where the victim is so unlikable? These things are NFTs are ugly. They're by and large, don't have the value associated with them. But yeah, this whole thing just feels like a good way to manipulate people to talk about your product to then maybe increase the value just that much more. And another thing that kind of points to that is that he claims that they were worth about 1,000 Ethereum a piece, but he sold them for just under a tenth of that. And, he said just to get them to sell it quickly. They mentioned that, so this is just the last in a seemingly endless and likely never-ending series of NFT heists. Hackers took over several accounts of the NFT marketplace Nifty Gateway and stole thousands of dollars worth of digital art. Images from the Lux Tier Bored Ape Yacht Club collection have been especially appetizing, giving their inflated value. And, over and over, we see NFTs and the ecosystem around them have unique vulnerabilities that arise due to centralized systems interacting with decentralized assets. Because obviously, if you can interact with the marketplace, then you could steal these things and then you can't get them back. Or you can send them to wallets that you also own and act like you got stolen from. So, yep, definitely have to wait and see if that's the case here. So there's that one. I think for now, we're going to move on to a little bit of hardware, which could be used for gaming, and then move on to our gaming news. Check this out. Like I said way at the beginning of the show, your first question, why? Your second question, how? Is, a 500 hertz PC monitor prototype is the fastest panel ever. It's really incredible. I think today's screens, a lot of people are still missing out on 144 hertz refresh rate. It's a big step over the 60 hertz that were just a couple of years ago, the standard. From there, you have your high-end people that really go for the 200 140 hertz refresh rate. And then the absolute mad people, well, they go for the 360 hertz refresh rate. Even the 360 hertz is very, very expensive. It's not needed in a lot of cases. And by and large, it's just, something to kind of future-proof yourself a little bit. Well, now a Chinese company called BOE is, working on a 500 hertz refresh rate monitor. They mentioned that today's PCs typically use a thin film transistor, TFT array, made of silicon, and and they say that the same type of non-crystalline material found in products like solar cells. According to a report by Tom's Hardware, from a Chinese publication, BOE, whose business includes making display panels for smartphones and tablets, has been working on making more efficient to replace the silicon TFT active layer with an oxide one. Who knows what that means? Who knows? But they're able to get an HD panel, a 1080p panel, for 500 times per second that can refresh. That's a huge step up. That's a huge step up. So they mentioned that the display maker is reportedly able to use oxide TFT LCDs, say that 3 times fast, to fight bright spots, increase panel reliability, and reduce power consumption by as much as 15%. They mentioned that various types of displays that they're working on, including a 13.3-inch 4K display. So it's unclear if all these features carry over to the 500 hertz prototype. And I think we're going to wrap this up here by saying that should they bring a 500 hertz panel to the market, it wouldn't be the first time we're seeing the oxide TFT technology. They're mentioning back in 2011, over 10 years ago, they used an oxide TFT LCD to make a 4K monitor prototype that ran at 240 hertz. And that was 10 years ago. They had a 4K 240 hertz monitor, which today's monitors still can't even do, without like a $1,500 price tag. It gets very expensive. So for now, 500 hertz is out of reach, but hey, maybe in the next 10 years, we'll be there. This would be absolutely excessive and unnecessary for anyone out there. But eventually, when it becomes commonplace, this would be desirable. And it's not even so much like that whole thing about the eyes refresh rate and things like that. I honestly think that there's a difference between 240 and 144, and definitely from 60. 144 should be the new minimum. That just feels so much more comfortable. There's a lot less eye strain. Everyone should go for that. But the point of going to 500 hertz is that if there's ever a hiccup, if there's a snag, even if your refresh rate drops by 50% for whatever reason, well, you won't even notice. And I think that's the appeal, is that everything will look slightly smooth, ever so slightly smoother, but there will be no more drops, no more dips, and you won't be taken out by how, those infrequent dips that can kind of happen. So, I think with that being said, and obviously that will vary for, a stagnant picture, you won't notice any difference. For a fast cut action movie scene with explosions and fast moving objects, yeah, you'll definitely notice a difference. So, okay, that's the hardware story. Definitely have to catch more of that there. Our next story, let's go ahead and talk video games. Yep. And by the way, 500 hertz, my eyes will hurt so much more. More refresh rate means that your eyes don't actually pick all that up, but everything looks a lot more fluid. It helps with the eye strain. Everyone, if you have eye strain after staring at a screen for too long, maybe you should, get like a 240 or 144 hertz monitor. It really does help a lot. So check that out. Okay. Our next story that we have is, okay, this is kind of personal to me because I love playing World of Warcraft, but it looks like certain technical hurdles have been overcome. And way back when WoW first launched, you had the ever so momentous decision of Alliance versus Horde. You played on one of two sides, one of two factions, and then you dumped hundreds and hundreds of hours into your character. From there, you had to pay $35 to bring your character from one side to the other so you could play with people who were on Alliance or Horde. But if you were Alliance, you could not play with Horde because, well, yeah, that's just how the game goes. You could play against them in PvP, but you could not group with them, you could not raid with them, you could not do anything with the quote-unquote wrong side. Now, here's the cool part. Thanks to WoW's 9.2.5 update, they are now promising that Horde and Alliance will be able to group together for instanced group content. So you could have things like rated PvP, you could do things like raid, you could do mythic dungeons, you could do all this content that was before faction locked. You could only play with people of your faction. That limitation is going away. And they mentioned they're not doing cross-faction guilds, but I would not be surprised to see that go away here when they are able to. They mentioned that they want to, it's just that is a bit more complicated. So there's no release date for 9.2.5 at this time. 9.2 should be coming out in the next couple of weeks, and it's a long requested update, and it's well timed in the post-Battle for Azeroth environment. Whether or not it boosts player counts is another story. They note that the total monthly active base dropped by 20 million between 2017 and 2021, and WoW likely played a large role in that drop. Honestly, this seems like a number of very highly requested, community-focused updates are getting pushed out and pushed out faster because of the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition. It seems like the people who are still with the company want to see these things change and want to see them changed fast. And honestly, it's a big change. It's something that people have been asking for over 10 years. Definitely good to see. So again, thank you for suffering through that, but that was my personal, feel-good gaming story. We're just going to jump right into this next one. And yeah, It Takes Two. If you haven't heard about it, you've been living under a gaming rock. It Takes Two is a wildly popular two-player video game. You need two players, as in It Takes Two. You need two players. You play split screen, either remotely or locally, and you solve puzzles. There are obstacles, there's jump puzzles, things like that. And by and large, it's a very fun, engaging game. I actually like it a lot. I've been playing through it. It's actually very, very fun. Now, with that being said, the game itself won a ton of awards for writing, animation, story. It was great. Now it should be adapted for film or TV, and I would imagine this would be much better in film. Honestly, it's almost like a ripoff of like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids mixed with a little bit of fantasy. It's a very familiar story, but it's still a very, very good story at the same time. They mentioned that the people who worked on the Sonic movies are on board to adapt the co-op game for the big or small screen. And although no studio or network has snapped up the project yet, the bidding war is underway. And they said that creating the world and story in It Takes Two was so much fun for me and the team, since it has a strong narrative with many crazy characters and just as crazy co-op action moments. The potential is huge for a great film or television adaptation. So although It Takes Two received widespread plaudits for its platform and asynchronous split-screen gameplay, several critics took issue with the stay together for the kids story and the awful character called the Book of Love. People will pick on anything. They mentioned that with some finding the plot to be the weakest aspect of the game, it'll be interesting to see how it translates into the movie or TV show. And I'll admit, the plot is, again, not revolutionary. It's something that we've seen before, and it is rather weak. But It's a fun world, it's a fun game, and I could totally see why they would want to adapt this to a movie. Makes a lot of sense. So there you go. There's that story, and I think that for our last story, we're just going to jump right through it. Should be, a quick little update. If you don't know, Discord and PlayStation, Sony PlayStation, had a big partnership that they announced not too long ago. And looks like the update is finally happening. Discord is officially rolling out on PlayStation consoles from today. And it should gradually appear for its users with more countries to follow. So if you're a big PlayStation player and you like Discord, this is a match made in heaven for you. So 8 months after the announcement of the planned partnership between Sony and Discord happened, well, today they confirmed it's rolling out. And they're saying that if you've ever connected your Discord account to another service that allows you to display your activity, it works similar here. Once your Discord account is linked, the game you're currently playing on either PS4 or PS5 will be shown as your activity, just like that. So they mentioned that PlayStation users can opt to display their PlayStation Network Online ID on their profile to Discord friends, and they can add them. It's especially great for knowing if your friend is currently playing a game that supports cross-play on another platform. We'll go ahead and wrap this up by saying that our goal is to bring the Discord and PlayStation experience closer together on console and mobile starting next year, allowing friends, groups, and communities to hang out, have fun, and communicate more easily while playing games together. This was after the deal that Microsoft and Discord were supposedly, tying the knot, fell through. And I think this partnership was the next best thing. Honestly, Discord has been a huge growth factor for itself, and I could see why PlayStation kind of snapped that up. So everyone, with that being said, I think we're just about done. That's the headlines. We have an interview that we should be recording here later today. If you want to check that out, computeramerica.com. We'll have that interview up shortly. And everyone, thank you for tuning into the program. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. And hey, we hope that you have a safe, fun day. And be sure to tune in for the next one. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.